Hey guys, how's it going? I'm gonna be doing a different type of video today. As you can kind of see here on my light chess account, some useless stats here, but I've imported 31 different games, and most, if not all of these games, I believe, are games I've played in real life, so over the board or OTB. And I kind of want to share my thought process and how I analyze my old games. I think it's extremely critical to not only play in real life, but also, to not only play online, but also in real life. And in particular in tournaments, if you can, because you have longer time controls. And if you still mess up, assuming you don't get into a time scramble towards the end, then it really shows that you had a flawed fundamental analysis or knowledge of the position. Yeah, okay, so this is one game. This is not the first game I actually ever played, but it's a game that I played against a much higher rated ELO. The game, spoiler alert, I guess ended in a draw, but he was a bit better. If you can kind of see my inaccuracies and average centipon loss here is 14, which I think is my best game I've ever played over the board, but clearly he was just a much stronger player than I was. My real life ELO is not as impressive as my online ELO, but this guy was like 1800 in real life. So online he's probably at least 2000, and I was able to hold my own pretty early on in my career. Like this was within my first 10 games or so. So let's kind of get it started. I knew playing the game that like just over time, gradually, he was kind of just outclassing me. And you could tell by how sound his moves are. It's just like, he plays moves that like, you don't realize are good, or when you're analyzing it or kind of going through them in your head, you realize that they're good moves, but you didn't realize how strong they were until he actually played them. So again, I haven't looked at these games in like years, so everything that I'm analyzing right now is authentic and really genuine, and honestly my impulse reactions. So I probably played the Nimzo because the Nimzo is actually something I used to study at the time. I knew all the different variations for if you played Queen C2, E3, Knight F3, A3, and all the responses were either C5, D5, castles, D6, some other stuff. So I think that's why I kind of like the Nimzo, because the response was always one of 3 or 4 moves. Not that you don't get that from every other opening, but I really like this pressure and this idea of kind of having this double attack on something that's relatively weak. So yeah. If he doesn't capture, so it looks like he knows the book moves too, then you have ideas of kind of just taking the pawn back and putting pressure. So for example, if you played E3 instead of taking, then you could slowly apply pressure. So again, all normal moves. I'm probably still in book by here. Obviously this A6 move kind of preps A3, sorry, kind of preps B4, but also it just stops my bishop from returning to this square. And because I already have some lift room here, I can go ahead and not worry about it. And also something to remember as black, in really any kingside castle position, you have to remember that black's dark square bishop on E7 is like the home for black's bishop. It's by far the most common spot for the bishop. The second most common spot would probably be fianchettoed on G7, but the bishop on E7 is home for just many reasons. It discourages a pin here on your knight, on your queen. Honestly, once your rook can kind of centralize, it can just go back here very easily. And it's just a move that makes sense. It can't be targeted very easily. Similarly with white, bishop E2 is a common idea, or bishop C4, as you can see in the Italian gambit, or Italian opening. So taking with the knight instead of the pawn was, I mean, I'm looking at it now, it's a bad move because like you're running into a lot of different discoveries here, which, why don't they work? I mean, yeah. So, I guess in real life, so I'm probably out of book by now, given the fact that I didn't take back with the pawn. My logic obviously being that if I take back with a knight, then I don't have an isolated queen's pawn yet. It kind of forces him to take back if he wants to isolate it, which he does. I take with the queen because if I take with the pawn, again, my idea, okay, well, my bishop's hanging. But my idea was that I didn't want an isolated queen's pawn. So it wouldn't make sense to take back with the pawn, even if my bishop weren't hanging. Yeah, this is a bad move because anytime you, regardless of the fact that he has bishop e4, anytime you weaken your pawn structure when it's not forced, it's just a bad move because what? He developed his piece to a natural square or a fairly natural square for his bishop. I guess he could have probably put it to c4 as well. And then I had to react to it for no reason, right? So something like queen h4 or h5 would have been much better. I don't know if I was scared of anything, to be honest. And you could already see that my position is like a bit worse. Yeah, so what did I do instead? Yeah, so that's a bad move. Maybe if my rook was already centralized, then having ideas of fiend shadowing my bishop makes more sense. But the problem is it's just too slow now, right? I have to waste like a move, kind of move my rook. Whereas if it was already moved in the first place, then it's only 2 moves away. And you might think, oh, 1 move is not a big deal, but oh, it's a big deal. Okay, so considering that, I could see why they want to get the bishop out of this square because the queen is eyeing it, but I don't see a need to do it yet. So I think the move I played was fine. The idea is that I could develop my bishop, but the thing is, if I can sort of clear up the c file, I could clearly move a rook in here. So yeah, I mean, to do that, obviously I would have to move my knight and my bishop. So I'm wondering if bishop d7 is a bad move. It probably is. Yeah, it's a terrible move. So kind of getting this guy off. It's a good move. I check first. What's my logic with moving it back instead of here? You can see how just like, even though through the game I only had, okay, I guess 5 inaccuracies is a lot. But the fact that I had 5 inaccuracies and my average center pawn loss is pretty low. You can see how I'm just not playing sound moves. So even when I'm not playing an inaccuracy, I'm just not playing the best move in the position, and this kind of shows. I mean, in this case it's an inaccuracy, but hypothetically if I lost less points, it would not have been an inaccuracy, but it still was like not the best move. And that's really the difference between me and him. Neither player has made a mistake yet per se, but his moves are just so accurate and so sound. I agree with his idea here because by moving your bishop here, you're stopping your rook from eyeing down my queen. But maybe the argument is that you want to get this square first before, because if I move my bishop back, which I eventually inevitably will, I get the square before you do. So maybe that's the idea. But I think his move is pretty good. Okay, so he instead opts for a fiend shadow. And you could already see that the fact that I played g6 earlier for really no reason hurts my position a lot. So I'm actually surprised I made this move because, oh, okay, I probably didn't play bishop d7 because I saw that his bishop, okay, that makes sense. So I'm actually surprised that in real life I played this move because I'm kind of looking at it right now. I would probably play it eventually anyways, but my gut reaction says to play like something like f6, even though it looks so bad. Like, because once I get something like f6, queen, e7, which I will because he'll attack my queen with the rook, I feel pretty safe. So there must be something wrong with f6. Because then what happens is, like, I feel pretty safe in this position. But this is an example of a position that's like, it really challenges my fundamental, or not even my fundamental, my advanced chess ability, because when I look at this position, I obviously think that I'm worse, but I don't think I'm 2.4 worse. Like, I think I'm like 1.5 worse, right? Like, I wouldn't even stretch and say I'm 2 worse. I would say I'm like 1.5 worse. But this is a position that like someone who's like 2000 elo or above, 2200 or above can like look at this and go like, ooh, yeah, that's bad. That's like maybe almost 3 bad. But when I look at it, I don't see it because I have everything protected. And the fact is that he has this constant pressure that I can't answer to because my pieces are so constrained towards the backside, like towards the black backside, that I have so much less real estate than he does. And that's what I was kind of alluding to in my controlling the center video, that whoever has more space just has more flexibility with his pieces. Perfect example here, I have less space and I have less flexibility with my pieces, and therefore the position is just in his favor, even though technically there's no really major threats. So yeah, the fact that I played e5, whether on purpose or not, whether because I saw that idea or not at the time, I'm impressed that I played it right now, and it probably saved me from losing this game. Right, so I'm playing style move, so important not to play something like queen e6. And I don't understand why, right? I don't understand why. Like, the only differences I see with this is that eventually when the dust settles, by having a queen kind of here, it puts there's less of a chance for the rook to kind of double up on the 7th rank. But otherwise, I don't really see a difference here. I guess long term, there's a difference with if this bishop ever gets like here or here, then there's like a lot of pressure on my king. But this, again, this is another move that I don't understand, like why, because I don't see any tactics, right? I don't see why it's much better than queen e7, which I think is what I played. So yeah, I just played a lot of, equally, I played a lot of sound moves as well that kept me alive. So yeah, I was actually just alluding to this earlier. I didn't even, like the fact that he has constant pressure on my king. And because I played g7 or g6, a lot of this would not be, a lot of this would be like fake pressure or not even real pressure because this like would be protected. But because I've kind of moved my pawn for very little reason, extremely preemptively, then I've kind of weakened my position. And when a game has so much like long-lasting pressure, these errors really add up. Okay, so I didn't play the best move, but I played something that I guess raised my, because I'm looking at my score here. Like, what's the point of doubling here? I'm trying to think. I don't see anything besides being prophylactic and kind of stop being queen c3. But I think what I played was fine because I'm kind of encouraging him to push, because obviously at the time I would have calculated that like pushing and then maybe either moving back would have been fine. Yeah, so even here he's playing like the right moves, right? He could have played something like queen here, for example. I don't really see anything wrong with it. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. There's something wrong with that because I can move my rook there. But even like doubling here, I don't really see what the issue is. But the fact that he didn't play something like that, because even after a bishop here, I don't see what's wrong with that without analyzing things. And then all of a sudden, apparently, I'm better. All right, it just takes like 2 or 3 non-perfect moves to just be in a better position. But he's playing the right moves and kudos to him. Like maybe for some of you guys, that's pretty like intuitive, but not to say that I wouldn't play in real life, but just like kind of analyzing it now, it's like, wow, he's playing like the right moves, and I'm lucky to have drawn this game. So the idea is that you want to pin his bishop. You're not really pinning. Okay, I see the idea here. So A, by moving my rook to c8 instead of d8, I'm giving 1 less square for my bishop. But B, also, when you're in such a tense, there's a difference. Like, this is not a tight position. It's a tense position though. So tight, because both sides kind of have a lot of room to move. Obviously I have less room than him, but we still have a lot of room to move. But it's tense because there's not a lot of things that we want to move. There's a key difference there, right? Because I don't want to kind of touch any of these pawns because I'm going to weaken my structure more. It's also pinned, like technically, A lot of pressure on this guy, and this guy's pinned. But it's not tight because there's just so much room. It's tense. So by moving one of my rooks, this one makes more sense because again, there's a double pressure here. By moving this rook here, I'm kind of trying to resolve the position quicker so that you could see that if this bishop were to ever move, I could at least trade one pair of rooks. And most likely two, because I could just move my rook back once this bishop is gone. So I think that's the idea with this move, and that's why rook c8 is probably not the most accurate move, but it's apparently not a bad move. Yeah, so not a surprising move here. He's just trying to develop his last piece. It coincidentally was the best move in the position, so that's fine. And yeah, so that idea that I was just talking about, I'm in a tense position, so I'm trying to resolve it as quickly as possible. Yeah, just trying to get the guy off the diagonal. Again, I don't see why rook e8 is better than rook d8, but those are moves that I could live with if I can just play a slightly wrong move. Yeah, I have no idea why I didn't just move back. What's my logic here? Why did I not just move back? Because like bishop g5 is not even intuitive. And the fact that he played queen, that's insane. Not saying that like there's obviously a better move, it's just like, wow, this looks like a bad move. Okay, okay, let's take a step back. I don't see why I didn't play bishop e6. There's just nothing about bishop g5 that looks better to me. Like the only thing is you're stopping the rook from here. But even if he didn't play something like queen g3, which is what he did, he could have played something like, oh no, he can't. Sorry, I didn't see the, oh, I see. Okay, so I guess my idea was that I do want to stop his rook from getting here because, I don't know. I just want to stop his rook from getting there is probably the idea. But I probably just didn't see queen g3 because queen g3 looks pretty strong. Like queen g5, it just looks so bad. Why can't he just push my my bishop? I must have seen this, right? Oh, I'm attacking his. Wait, no, yeah. What's? So he did push my bishop. Wow, I don't understand what I'm doing. Well, okay, so I guess I saw this tactic already, which I'm pretty impressed because I didn't see it myself. Can't he just take here? Oh, he can't take here because, oh, okay. That's pretty clever of me. I mean, it's clever of me after I made a bad move. Okay, so I probably thought that... Okay, so I only... Again, this is from years ago, so I'm trying to remember it. I only played queen g5 because I saw that this a6 or a3 or h3, sorry, h3 bishop d4 idea was working. But the fact that I played bishop g4 was just because I didn't see queen g3. That's the only reason that I can see right now. So this makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So okay. Let's say we get to this position. Move 27. This is very key. So you would probably start your analysis here, right? On move 23, or before you make move 23, you would probably go like, okay, what happens after queen g5, h6, h3, bishop d4, queen takes, pawn, queen takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and then you would probably stop here, right? But the key is when you stop your analysis, you want to stop on your opponent's move. Because you need to see if your opponent's move is a threat or not. A lot of times beginners stop their analysis, like calculating lines like what I just did, on their move, which is wrong because it literally positions you, it just gives you a higher chance to mess up, right? Because there are moves that you haven't seen. So maybe at the time I stopped my analysis here and I was like, okay, this is pretty good. But then obviously once the rook gets here, this is a lot of pressure on both these pawns. Even though I'm getting one back, you can kind of see it's hard to get this one because then the rook is already here. And it's just a very bad position. But I'm curious why I'm looking at the rating here. So he took with the pawn, or with the queen instead of the pawn. So that's an inaccuracy from him. Yeah, because I don't really know why. I guess, yeah, if he has more pieces that have more room, you want to keep your pieces on the board, right? Whereas me, I'm trying to liquidate and get rid of my pieces. He should not be trying to do that. So once I got to... Ooh, that's a bad move. Once I got to here, I feel like I was already losing. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I spent like a long time here thinking what to do, and I still made the wrong move. Because when you're in a position like this, a lot of times it's not good to be passive. Sometimes you want to try to, there's a word for it. Not like a counter punch, but you want to make threats, because you're trying to regain momentum. Right now, you can kind of tell that white is dictating the moves and the pressure. Like, black has no pressure. He's just responding to all the moves. He's very reactive right now, whereas white is extremely proactive. But when you create threats of your own, so for example, by moving my rook to c8, I have some back rank ideas. Although it's not mate, they're just some ideas of like swinging around. And that's an example of creating pressure. You're trying to be proactive with it. And a lot of times when you're in like these losing positions, you want to try to do that. But obviously I didn't make a good move apparently, because so I'm trying to see his perspective, why he didn't just take with the bishop. Because if he did, what do I do? I don't blame him for taking with the rook. I don't blame him for taking with the rook. So I'm down one pawn, but these two pawns are doubled. So could you imagine this exact position with a queen, like with two queens? My king is so unsafe, but his is relatively safe. And that's just something that grandmasters, and not even grandmasters, like above 2,000 elo players can envision, right from from this position. From this position, they can see that the end game with a queen, with both queens on the board, is stronger for them than off the board. But I guess we can't. Like, that idea is not intuitive for us, I guess. Yeah, so I'm actually surprised. When I was playing this, I thought it was +1 for him the whole time, regardless of what moves I made. I didn't realize that because of this move, it'd be like a +0.4. So in my head, I was like begging for a draw. So what? Yeah, so in this position, I'm trying to create a fortress, which is probably why I do that, but it's not the best move. Yeah, stopping the bishop from... Okay, so the idea is you stop the pawn from getting here, because then you have two less escape squares. So that's what I'm trying to do, but I did it wrong. I should have just moved my king first, because it does get my king into a safer position. Yeah, I'm still moving back. My logic isn't there yet. Yeah, and then he just repeats. So I feel like if he grinded another 30 moves, he would eventually win, because I would mess up. But if played perfectly, I don't know if this is losing. Because what I see is that, I haven't really studied this much, but when you have opposite color bishops and nothing else on the board, is very drawish, like no other pieces, or minor or major pieces, is very drawish, because you're not defending or attacking the square that the pawn can promote. So for example, as black, I would be kind of defending any dark squares that a pawn can promote, but he's attacking squares that I can't defend, and vice versa. So the fact that his 3 pawns can promote on light squares are all blocked, to me that seems really drawish. But for example, if you had something like if these double pawns were here, so that you literally had one more pawn on like or no, what am I saying? If my pawn was on a light square, something that I can't defend, then I would say he's probably winning, because I'm just not attacking that square. And then you can see that if this pawn were to ever break here, I don't have anything defending it. Right? Whew. So, yeah, I mean, it literally just boiled up 5 inaccuracies versus 2. But it's good to see that he was never, like, guaranteed winning. Like, a grandmaster would definitely win this position, probably. But there were just lots of ideas that... Obviously, I had the one bad move, which was the bishop. Like, yeah, this bishop g4 was just a bad move because it doesn't make sense. The tactic doesn't really... The logic is fine. Like, you're trying to protect this. I just missed this move, so it was a bad move. But the whole idea that that he took back with the queen here and the pawn, it's not like... It's like, yeah, it's like a not sound move, but if your logic was that my position 20 moves from now is better or worse with the queen or without a queen, then this decision might change, right? And that's something that we just don't think deeply enough. And then also here, ending the calculation on my move instead of his move would have showed me that this was a fine position. But if I ended on his move, I would have seen that this is pretty bad. I don't blame him for taking with the rook there. And then yeah, this whole idea of not moving my king up to a technically safer square. My logic was probably just like, oh, this is not... Oh, actually, yeah, I probably don't know what I would have done after bishop g8 because that's a lot of... So I don't know. Maybe that's what I was thinking in real life. But yeah, just the fact that... So I like that I had the logic of stopping this pawn from going here because it would not impede, it would block 2 squares that my king has to escape. But I should have just done it with the king instead of with the bishop. And he just kindly accepted my draw here. So yeah, he was like 1800 plus in real life, again, which in my opinion is over 2000 online, and I was not. I have not cracked 1600 in real life, but in my opinion, that's just because I don't have enough time to play tournaments, and it's also quite costly. Like they're at least 50 bucks an entry, but it's not really the cost that's important. They're very timely. Like you're spending a whole weekend there, which after a working week is not a vibe, right? So yeah, that's kind of... This is one of my best in real life games over the board games like I've ever played. From an average center pawn loss is probably my best. I've never had a single digits average center pawn loss. For reference, grandmasters are in single digits all the time with like 0 inaccuracies. So clearly there's work to be done, but by analyzing your own games, you see where your mistakes are. Because you have to remember, I'm spending like at least 10-15 minutes on critical moves. It's not like a blitz game where I'm spending 30 seconds and I can miss something. If I still miss something at this point, there's something flawed with my logic. And now I see it, right? Like I'm scared of moving my king to a safer position because it's like away from the black side, which is wrong thinking. His whole queen thing and everything else I mentioned before. All right, so hope that helps. Thanks for watching, and if you like these type of videos, I'll keep doing them. I'll keep doing more of them, and hopefully you're still playing chess as well. Thanks.